Well, hello and welcome to a special Movie Burner podcast from Movie Burner Entertainment. We're only 4 days away from the release of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, and we're talking Star Wars for the next 8 days, from The Phantom Menace to The Force Awakens. We'll be discussing these in episodic order, and we'll even throw in the first of the standalone films, Rogue One, for good measure. The countdown begins.
And now we're going to be discussing the film that kicked off everything. It kicked off the single greatest film franchise ever created in Western society. It created a pop culture phenomenon, the like of which we have never seen before and will likely never be matched in the years coming. It's a film that was made with a modest budget of $10 million, which makes it all the more remarkable, especially given the setting and the genre it was in at the time. It's an incredible achievement. I'm of course talking about Star Wars: A New Hope, Stephen.
Yeah, it's a not bad film, John, eh?
Yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. And you know, I've often criticised George Lucas during these podcasts, these special Star Wars podcasts, I should say, regarding his directorial skills, but you can't dispute what he's built here. He built this from his imagination. He wrote the scripts, he directed it under intense strain. I think he actually nearly suffered a heart attack at one point out in Tunisia, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's saw the documentary Empire of Dreams, you'll know the struggles that George Lucas had initially pitching this movie.
Yeah.
No studio wanted to touch it. I think the only one that actually believed in the project was his good friend Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, and listen, it's one of the greatest films ever created for me, and my only wish is that he'd left them alone and didn't tamper with them quite as much as he did. You don't see Van Gogh, Picasso, Frida Kahlo or the likes of those greats going back and tampering with their masterpieces, and it's much the same. I mean, some of the changes are okay, which we'll get into as the podcast goes on, but for the most part, adding CGI'd rocking and stuff like that and changing Ben's scream, it's why did you do it, George? But yeah,
it was certainly necessary to clean the film up. The restoration was phenomenal. I don't think we can take that away from Lucasfilm or ILM. Just going back to yesterday's podcast with Rogue One, I did mention, you know, this is the prequel film, if you like. I know that's not an official prequel, but this is a film that really does bridge the gap between the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. And now we've got Rogue One. It does add a bit more interest and depth to A New Hope, John.
It certainly does. It certainly adds more interest and depth to the opener, especially when you see Darth Vader for the first time. And just speaking about that opening shot is probably my favourite of all the Star Wars films. Just the sight of that Star Destroyer appearing on the screen, chasing after the Tantive 4 blockade runner. Incredible. The music, the visuals, sets the film up beautifully. Then of course we go on board the ship, which we've seen at the end of Rogue One, but at the time, if you've watched it for the first time, we're seeing this for the first time on board this ship, the gleaming white halls, and of course the rebel troopers looking a little bit scared and knuckling down, ready for a fight in the corridor. And then we see the towering figure of Darth Vader appearing in the doorway for the first time. I have to say, when I first seen this film, that immediately had me hooked. I thought everything about it was perfect. As I said, the score, visuals, and then we hear the bassy voice of James Earl Jones looking for answers. Yeah,
the entrance for Vader was, personally, I felt it underwhelming, and I don't mean that in a critical way. When you're looking at these episodes back to back now, you can understand his entrance isn't so grand once you've seen Episode 3 and Rogue One. I don't know if that was in his thoughts for that particular shot, but he just comes in, analyses the situation and walks on, doesn't even have to say anything. It's that breathing though. Ben Burt again, you know, I've mentioned him in previous podcasts, how he created that breathing. I think it was submarine sounds and something else, I can't remember what it was. It's so iconic now, and when you think back to 1976 when this was being filmed, the sounds that this man created, and they're all organic as well. You know, he was getting sounds from different animals in different locations, adding echo, etc., mixing them. In fact, I think Chewbacca's voice is I think it's a cross between a sea lion and a bear. You know, and you wouldn't think of these things in a million years. So from that point of view, as you mentioned, the John Williams score, I don't think we could go ignoring Ben Burt's work as well.
No, not at all. And as you said, 1976, that's one of the remarkable things about this film. I don't think it's aged. Obviously there's a couple of dodgy fashion statements going on in there and a couple of dodgy haircuts, but for the most part, I think it looks incredible. You could watch this film and you wouldn't think it was made 40 years ago. Obviously, part and parcel to the restoration, what you spoke about. But obviously, after this, we then get to meet Princess Leia, looking retrospectively now with Rogue One and stuff like that. We've seen her before, but just touching upon it as if we've watched it for the first time, just basing it on this film. We get to see Princess Leia for the first time. She's stashing the Death Star plans inside R2-D2. And we get to meet R2-D2 and C-3PO as well. We also see her getting stunned, and then they both escape, obviously, via the escape pod down to Tatooine. This was always one thing that annoyed me slightly, the fact they didn't fire on that escape pod. That could have ended everything.
Even just for target practice, John, Yeah,
that didn't make much sense to me, that. And then we get down to the familiar setting, well, at this point wasn't familiar, of Tatooine, and the two are bickering as they do throughout the original trilogy, really. And then we go their separate ways. We get to meet the Jawas, and then finally a young farm boy by the name of Luke Skywalker, probably one of the most iconic characters ever created.
I think this is where the film actually slows down a little, John. I know there was additional scenes that you've probably seen on YouTube and on bonus discs, etc., where Luke has some interactions.
With Biggs.
He might. I think it's before Biggs though. I think he's out on the moisture farms doing some repairs, and I think he looks up to the sky and sees the battle above.
Yeah, that's right.
That was something we talked about. It would have been interesting to maybe have put that into Rogue One.
Yeah.
It might have looked a wee bit misplaced though. Putting that in and people going, "Who's this guy?" But no, and then he meets Biggs. But as I said, the pacing at this point, it started off so fast and very quick paced, and then this is us starting to be introduced to the characters. Princess Leia's is very quick at the beginning, but later on we get to know her a little bit better. We get to understand her position in this film, and obviously we're introduced to Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker at this stage. Yeah,
and all he wanted to do was go to the Toshi station to pick up some power converters, apparently. But I digress. He ends up acquiring a couple of droids off the Jawas, him and his Uncle Owen, who absolutely despises the character. And when he met his horrific end, I was actually quite glad, but we'll get into that in more detail in a moment. And then obviously they go to the Skywalker homestead. C-3PO gets his oil bath. R2-D2 plays that infamous message of "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope." And then he does a runner in the middle of the night, the little git, when Luke takes his restraining bolt off him.
I've got to say though, again we're going back to 1976 here, that effect for the hologram, was absolutely outstanding for its time, John.
Certainly was, yeah. There's a lot of things that have aged, as I says, very well in this film. Certainly the sets as well. I thought the set of the Skywalker homestead, I thought that was incredible, and also you can go and visit that to this day.
Yeah,
but just
I think it might be a restaurant actually.
Yeah, just the contrast bit of outside and inside. It's gleaming inside and it's also looking very grubby and Moroccan-esque outside. Then we get to meet another infamous character in the Star Wars universe for the first time in this trilogy, with Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Ben Kenobi as he's called out in the sticks as a hermit. Yeah,
the famous Alec Guinness. And just like we were talking about the other week there with Harrison Ford, Alec Guinness has done a lot of bad rap with previous interviews, if people want to drag up the archives about, this silly space opera. They
should have been talking about Bridge on the River Kwai.
Exactly, and that's the only difference, between Harrison Ford and Alec Guinness, in that sense that Alec Guinness was an established actor, very much in the vein of Peter Cushing as well, and Harrison Ford, this was really his first big blockbuster, but no, it's a great entrance as well. The
screen.
And the hello there. He fends off the Sand People, and he's not heard the name Obi-Wan Kenobi for a very long time.
Yeah, and just quickly touching back on a little moment during that sequence, we talk about the visuals and stuff like that, but you see this throughout this film as well, just a little neat tricks they've done. And obviously one of them raises the weapon up when he's knocked Luke down, and it turns out during the shooting that was only done once, but they used a nifty little camera trick to make him do it repeatedly, which I thought was incredible when I discovered that. But it's just one of a number of things that we learn about this film. And then in terms of story, we then find out that Luke has got the potential to be a Jedi in this film, haven't we? Where he gave his father's lightsaber, and Obi-Wan begins one of his many lies to the young fanboy.
Yeah, I mean, it links back to the prequels as well, the mention of the Clone Wars. The father's lightsaber, he told a little white lie in that one, but he wanted you to have this when you're old enough. No, that's not happened, Obi-Wan. But no, it's good, the mention of the Clone Wars, and I like the way that Alec Guinness executes these lines when he's talking about Anakin, because you can tell by his facial expressions that he's tried to tell Luke as much as he can without telling him too much what the real story is, and it was quite a clever trick on Lucas's part to explain. He must have explained this to the actors, you know, there is a backstory here, just do this, you know, faster and more intense, you know.
Yeah, and listen, it speaks volumes for Alec Guinness's acting ability, because there actually is a fan edit kicking around. I've seen it on Facebook with that scene you're talking about, and I'm talking about Anakin and how he was the best starfighter pilot in the galaxy and stuff like that, and a cunning warrior, I think.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
I think it says Darth Vader betrayed and killed your father, but I digress. There's a video kicking about where it intersperses little shots of the prequels with Anakin and Obi-Wan together, and although you might not be a big fan of prequels, I thought it was incredible. As you say, the emotion, it linked it well, and it was incredible when you see the emotion they managed to get into those shots and those lines. So yeah, brilliant.
Especially when these films didn't exist at that point, you know. But the other thing I do like about this particular sequence is the reluctance from Luke at this point. He's got this hunger and eagerness to leave Tatooine. He wants to go on adventures, but it's that emotional guilt through his aunt and uncle that holds him back. You know, he wants to, I think it's join the academy. His uncle's saying, you know, next year I need you this year, etc. You know, and there's that emotional baggage, and this takes us into obviously the scene, one of your favourite scenes, John.
Yeah. There was actually a figure set that released, and with the two of their charred corpses as part of the figure set, and I was actually really tempted to buy this. As I says, I despise them for different reasons. Aunt Beru wasn't a particularly unlikable character, but just that horrific overdubbing, it just didn't go, it didn't fit. To get into the spirit of this film, the time it was made, it didn't jive with the character. And Uncle Owen was just a git, and there's no other word to describe it. So I was incredibly happy to see them meet their demise, and obviously from a story standpoint, they let us kick on and step up the pace again. As you say, it did dip a little bit, but I was just incredibly happy to see their demise in the gruesome fashion as well. It kind of showed the brutality of the Empire as well and what they were dealing with.
It kind of kick-started the adventure for Luke as well, you know. He'd nothing left to live there for, you know, and this is obviously where Obi-Wan, Luke and the droids now go to Mos Eisley.
Yeah, this, I have to say, even with the special editions, I've never seen the original cut of this, which is shocking. This is one of my worst scenes in the film, I've got to be honest. I absolutely love this film, but that scene when they go in to Mos Eisley and those horrific CG creatures, I don't even know what they're called, going across the camera and stuff like that, just terrible, and it's aged horrifically, as I've spoke before about. And then we of course get the brilliant mind trick scene with the stormtroopers, where he says, "These are not the droids you're looking for, move along." It's just brilliant. Yeah, I was just absolutely brilliant in that scene, and it showed the early on the abilities of a Jedi and what you had to look forward to, Luke. And of course he uses it to great effect later on in the trilogy, one of my personal favourite moments, but we'll get into that later. And then we go on to another famous shot and scene, if you like, in the cantina, which has also been replicated many a time, and it's just all the menagerie of aliens inside and the brilliant cantina music. And then we get to meet Han Solo and Chewbacca as well.
Yeah, the cantina music is so iconic now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's been used in different animated cartoons. Yeah, I mean, the characters in the cantina weren't exactly friendly, you know. The droids weren't allowed in for a kick-off. I think the bartender was very reluctant to serve Luke as well. He had a real bad attitude. And then obviously we meet those two savoury characters, if you like, you know, a walrus man, and I can't remember what their names are. But
yeah, this is a classic scene as well. Just the quote, "I don't like you, he doesn't like you either. You just watch yourself. I have a death penalty." It's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I often slag Lucas for his writing, but that was a great little moment, and I love the way that Ben Kenobi dealt with him.
Yeah,
as I say, Lucas does like limb dismemberment, and he certainly shows it in this.
That's really the first time you see the lightsaber in action. I know that Luke ignites it in Ben's homestead, but this is the first time you see the damage it can do.
Yeah, and it's certainly damaging. Is it the other chap that cops his friend that wasn't bothering? He was doing the mouthing and he got off scot-free. That wasn't very fair. And then of course, as I say, we meet Han Solo, and brings up the whiny side of Luke, because he's not been a Jedi Master in the entire trilogy, let me tell you. The opening shots of him being a young fanboy, he's very whiny, very immature. and we get some crackers. I mean, I can list them if you want. You don't have to sit here and listen to this. But who's going to fire, kid? You bet I could. I'm not such a bad pilot. Just good Lord, like, who would have known you were going to transform into that man in Return of the Jedi and even The Force Awakens? Lord Almighty.
Yeah, I mean, you know, right from the start, Harrison Ford, he's sharing a scene with Alec Guinness, but he owns the scene. You know, he's very sure of himself, very suave. We also get to see Chewbacca for the first time as well. It's a good scene. You know, it kind of sets them up, and it kind of indicates the kind of character Han Solo is. He's only interested in money. He's obviously got a bounty on himself with Jabba the Hutt, and that obviously takes us up to them agreeing a price.
Was it 15,000?
Yeah, and you know that's the deal they make. And you know he says, "I'll meet you in, I think it's Docking Bay 94 or something like that." And then we meet Greedo,
who was played by a female, which I didn't know until recently. But now looking at it, yeah, it looks like a female. Yeah, this is another infamous moment for George where he starts playing about with the film and making Greedo shoot first. Again, I've never had the pleasure of seeing Mr. Solo shoot first. But yeah, it's another great scene, and it shows the callousness of the character. He goes through a real transformation in this film, Han Solo. He starts off pretty selfish, he's a smuggler, and he turns into a hero, and it's satisfying to see, really. But yeah, this scene's fantastic with Greedo, who's I get as well, and he deserved to die.
Yeah, and then we get to see the spy, you know, following Obi-Wan and Luke through those corridors of Mos Eisley to get to the docking bay. I mean, when we're doing this podcast, we're doing the special editions, and one of the things that you know, it's one of the most horrific thoughts that the man ever had was to put this scene in. The actual dialogue itself it replicates what's already happened. I'm pretty sure the actual the audio, the voice, is just copied and pasted onto this sequence with a not so convincing Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, the CG is terrible, and then Han Solo actually says to him at the end of the altercation or the exchange, "You're a wonderful human being," which made no sense because he's clearly not a human being. He's a massive slug.
And we see Greedo again standing there. It's confusing. And then they put in a cameo from Boba Fett as well, which was totally unnecessary. And it kind of ruins it a little bit for me when we get to The Empire Strikes Back and we get to see the introduction of the bounty hunters. You know, the scene with Vader when he's talking to them all. It kind of kills that. And it also, you know, getting back to the Jabba the Hutt, I loved the way that it was spoke about in A New Hope, and I loved the way that it was spoke about in The Empire Strikes Back, and it really built up the character before you saw him in Return of the Jedi, you know, and that was instantly, you know, killed off when they inserted this terrible scene where Han Solo steps over him, and he pulls this, and I'm talking about the 1997 special edition here. They've tidied it up a little bit better now.
Yeah, I've seen shots of that one.
That one was terrible. Even back in 1997, I went to see the special editions in the cinema with my dad and my brother, and I hated the scene. I just absolutely hated it.
Yeah, and I don't blame you, because it really wasn't good. And then I think the spy alerts the Empire and the stormtroopers of what's going on, and they try to really stop them from getting off the planet, and then we have that little brief burst of action with the Millennium Falcon shooting off into the sky. What a sight that was, I have to say. I don't know what it was like in the original. As I said, I never got to see the pleasure of seeing the original version, but certainly in the special editions, the shot of the Falcon getting up into the sky was superb.
Just leaving Mos Eisley, this is the first time that we really understand what the Force is all about. If you've not watched the prequels, that is. It's an energy field that surrounds and binds a galaxy together. I think it's actually Yoda that says that later on in the saga, but Luke says that controls your actions. He says partially, you know, and that we get to see Han Solo being the biggest cynic in the galaxy. You know, he doesn't believe, he thinks it's all simple tricks and nonsense, which is an interesting development with that character when we get to The Force Awakens, where he stands in the same spot. But you know, as we were talking about off air, we were talking about the effects for the chessboard as well, John. Yeah,
it's really a stop motion type thing, isn't it? Much like the Rancor that comes up in Return of the Jedi. It's a great little scene. Obviously, Chewbacca threatens to rip off C-3PO's arm when he's gloating at R2, I believe. Is it R2? Nearly winning the game. I think it's actually Han Solo says that actually. Droids don't rip arms out of their socket or something along those lines. But yeah, it was a great moment with Luke obviously training with the visor and the little remote, and brilliant moment for me. And yeah, as you say, it definitely does. It delves into the mythos of the Force a little bit, and Han is very cynical, but as we'll find out, he goes full 360 and says it's all true. I think that really takes us on to the Death Star with Leia being interrogated.
It's the first time we see Tarkin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first time we get to see the great man himself, as I touched upon in Rogue One. He was always one of my favourite characters in this. He was barely in it as well, which is strange, but such is the presence and the acting ability of Peter Cushing. He does leave a lasting impact on you.
Yeah.
And we also get to witness, in this film, the first shot of the destructive power that the Death Star has, with him taking out Alderaan. And I just loved the way he rolled his R's, and I think there was a little quote about Dantooine being far too remote a system that will deal with your little rebel friends. It's just brilliant, absolutely great. Everything about it's great. And yeah, strangely, Leia has got an American accent and then a British accent.
Yeah, I think working with Peter Cushing it probably rubbed off on her. But by all accounts, Peter Cushing was a gentleman, and he felt really bad the way he was treating Carrie Fisher, in these scenes, being in character. But no, it shows you really at this point in the film, it shows you the intent and the ruthlessness of the Empire, that they can destroy a whole planet, and it just to teach them a lesson, basically. Vader's he's very quiet in this scene. This is all about Peter Cushing's character. It's all about Carrie Fisher's character. As I was saying, this is really where we get to understand her character and her strengths. For me, she was the first female strong character in a film that I had watched. I was too young for Alien when it came out. When I first saw A New Hope, I was probably about 5 or 6, so it was the early 80s. I was still too young for Alien to see Ripley. So Carrie Fisher was the first strong female lead, if you like, in a movie. And this scene, although she does kind of crack, because of what's happening to her home planet. It's where her family is, it's where her friends are, her loved ones. But it's a great scene.
Yeah, and even under that strain, she doesn't give away the rebel position.
No.
As a certain Moff Tarkin finds out later on. Yeah, I completely agree with you. As we spoke about when we were doing our Sigourney Weaver profile a couple of weeks back, it might have been longer than that now actually, she completely redefined the role of a princess, if you like.
Yeah.
Because obviously she is Princess Leia. She's very hard and able to deal with things herself, and a great shot, as we'll see later on in the film. Don't think she ever misses. But yeah, I think this takes us on to Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Ben Kenobi I should say. This takes us on to Ben Kenobi and the others arriving at the scene of destruction where Alderaan used to be, and then they slowly get pulled into the Death Star.
It's a great scene, John. It's a great sequence. The guys at ILM perform miracles. It's the sheer scale of the Death Star as they're getting pulled into it, and you see, I think it's that side shot when they're coming into the docking bay. You know yourself, the Millennium Falcon when they were on Tatooine looked massive, but it looked like a crumb when you see it entering that Death Star.
Yeah, and then obviously they go into the hangar, and it was actually interesting. I mind seeing that I think it was only half a hangar or something like that. It wasn't a full hangar, so the way they recreated that using matte paintings, also the great Ralph McQuarrie's matte paintings, absolutely brilliant the way they worked it in. And then we also go into the boardroom scene with Grand Moff Tarkin and these group of goons, I'm going to call them, because they're unnamed as far as I'm aware, and one of them trying to take the mick out of Darth Vader when he's talking about the Force. He ends up getting choked. And again, we were touching on this with Tarkin in our podcast yesterday about Rogue One, but he really was the only one that had a sense of authority over Vader. He told him to stop this nonsense, and he says as you wish. So again, it was an interesting look into the real dynamics between those two's relationship.
Yeah, and as you said in a previous podcast, John, you've read the book Tarkin.
Yeah.
You know exactly where his position in the Empire is, and the respect. And it indicates the position of the trio of the Emperor, Darth Vader and Grand Moff Tarkin. But you can let us know a bit more about the book, John, and how that kind of cements the relationship.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the book it's actually more like a prequel. It takes place as they're overseeing the construction of the Death Star, but it breaks into Tarkin's young life on his planet, and the way he really catches the eye of the Emperor, and then gets rewarded with the position of Grand Moff, which didn't exist. The Emperor actually created that for him, so that shows you just how important he was. He was a great tactician, great military figure in it. So yeah, he was very, very highly thought of. He was up there with Vader and the Emperor, and as I said yesterday, there wasn't many below, even close to his position.
An interesting shot in that boardroom as well. There is an empty chair that could have been Director Krennic's, you know. I mean, it might not have been, but you know, it's great to speculate.
Yeah, I just find it, I love things like that, what you says there with the chair. I love that, but they noticed there was an empty chair and they've probably intentionally put that in. That's just another great way that this story group that's in place now for these films, it's the way they're utilising all those wee things. It's superb. I love that, the attentions to detail.
Vader down in the hangar, John, he says that a memorable line, there's a presence I've not felt since, and walks away. It kind of links again with the prequels. It's a great scene. This is when we find out that Han Solo has got storage compartments, which are later used in The Force Awakens. But this is where he hides his cargo when he's you know, transporting whatever it is, spices or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think it is spices.
You know, and he didn't think he'd use them for himself. It's also, this is the point where
it's a rescue mission.
It really does kick off from there. And
I just love everything on this Death Star. All the sequences on board, I thought it was brilliant. Interactions and the chemistry between Chewie, Han, Luke, and Leia when she gets saved, just brilliant. There's so much going on in it.
The sets as well are very impressive, aren't they? The corridors, the elevators, that control room they're in, you know, the red and black control room, where I think that's where we Luke and Obi-Wan go their separate ways.
It is indeed, yeah. Obi-Wan goes off to, I think, try and shut down the tractor beamer to allow him to escape. At this point we don't know it's a suicide mission for him. Well, it's not technically not a suicide mission, it's he knows exactly what he's doing, because he knows he can go to a higher purpose, if you like. And then we discover that, I think R2-D2 actually taps into the computer systems and discovers that Leia's on board, and this spurs Luke into action. He really plays into Han's selfish side by often saying he'll be rewarded greatly, and off they go to save Leia from her detention block. I can't remember the level in the detention block. Some people would know that. And it hints at the little bits of humour in this film as well, where Han's having to utilise small talk on the comm. Yeah, it's a leak, a big leak. Everything's under control here and stuff like that. And then it's into the garbage chute flyboy and stuff like that. I love this scene. I love everything on board the Death Star. Obviously, we then go into the trash compactor, and that's a great moment as well, where Luke's getting pulled under with strange beasts and stuff like that.
I think the four actors, Peter Mayhew was there as well.
It's easy to forget Peter at times though, isn't it? Let's be honest.
I think they spent a whole day in that trash compactor doing the sequences, and I think by the end of the day they said that the water in there was absolutely stinking, so it was probably like a real trash compactor. It's another one of these scenes that you remember when you think of A New Hope, and the walls are closing in on them.
And there's a pipe that's meant to be a pipe, but it's bending with its foam. Wasn't very convincing, I have to say. Yeah, and then we break into all-out action really when the two droids manage to save them. Well, no thanks to 3PO, who's gibbering away as usual and panicking. You're quite right. Then we have a brief look at the cattish side of Leia, where she says, "Get the walking carpet out of my way," and stuff like that. And then they all make a rush really for the Millennium Falcon to get off, and that takes us nicely on to probably the worst lightsaber battle in any of the films to date really, but I suppose from an emotional standpoint it was probably up there, I would imagine.
I mean, that the lightsaber battle itself is very stationary, but the actual it's interesting dialogue between both Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. When I last met you, I was but the learner, now I am the master. And it's interesting that Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't call him Vader, he calls him Darth, which is very rare in the Star Wars saga for any of the Sith Lords to be called Darth, because they're all called Darth. But no, it's one of those.
I think George hasn't probably thought that out yet.
Yeah, it's one of those scenes that that just serves a purpose. It's self-sacrifice from the Jedi Knight when he glances over to Luke Skywalker. He can't accept what's about to happen. Obi-Wan obviously surrenders his lightsaber. Darth Vader cuts through him like butter. And he mysteriously disappears. That's
a great moment, isn't it, when the cape falls and the lightsaber obviously falls down. A great moment. Well, I think there's a little goof in there when Vader's lightsaber goes through the door. I think there's a little mistake in there.
Yeah, I don't think they tidied that one up.
And then they escape off the Death Star, of course, and Luke quickly gets over his grieving, very quickly indeed.
Yeah, they managed to escape, minus Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is when we first see the gunner position on the Millennium Falcon that Luke takes up.
Yeah, and the cool little 3D almost Tron-esque, well, it was predating Tron to be fair, aiming system, that was cool. I like that.
And it's the first space battle we see as well, with the TIE fighters attacking the Millennium Falcon. Little did we know that it was actually just to track them.
Yeah, it was all a charade, yeah.
Yeah, but it was a good sequence. It was very impressive. Obviously, what was about to come was going to obviously overshadow that sequence with the Death Star trench run. But just before that, yeah, I mean, we arrive at Yavin 4, which, if you watch these in sequential order, you'll know this from Rogue One. This is when we finally get to meet Biggs as well, who was previously mentioned by Luke to, I think it was his uncle, get to interact with him. Also, I think the pilot that's questioning Luke's abilities to pilot, there was an actual cut scene where he mentioned that he knew Luke's father. That scene itself is cut badly.
Yeah, it is. I think the droids changed position quite a bit during the cut moment. But yeah, that's also when we go into the whole planning room, if you'd like, and we see Luke's mention that it's not impossible. I bullseyed I bullseyed Womp Rats back in Beggar's Canyon or something like that. So that, again, a little hint at the terrible dialogue that kind of plagued some of the characters, and of course brought up that great quote from Harrison Ford where he says, "You can type this shit but you can't write it." But yeah, that takes us on to the finale with the Death Star trench run.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that was 10 ping pong tables and a lot of battleship model kits that were stuck together, John.
Yeah, and just touching upon that, that's actually brings me on to a point I was going to mention about the visuals, and just the ingenious way that they went about making props and stuff like this. Utterly incredible, as you say. Ping pong tables put together, scavenging old camera flashes and World War I rifles, window lighters, airplane parts, everything really to make the ships, the lightsabers, the blasters. Just a brilliant show of ingenuity. And this is one of the things that really stands out for me in the original films. I mean, you can have all the CG and technology in the world, but that ingenuity and really using everything they could get their hands on to build these sets, it's made it stand out. It really did.
Yeah, I think those sequences in the trenches as well are still hold up to today. A couple of little dodgy bits, but no, that's when we get to see Biggs and Gold Leader as well, who was then obviously, if you're watching it in sequential order, we were introduced to them in Rogue One. But no, these scenes are absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's an iconic sequence, it really is. It's stood the test of time. It can be watched dozens of times for me and it never loses its impact. We also see the death of a couple of Luke's friends, if you'd like. Porkins, who's been really who's been immortalised in the years that have followed. Biggs as well meets his end. He wasn't really mourned for me. I always thought he was a bit of a creep, to be honest, with that moustache. And then we have the sight of Vader and his TIE Interceptor with the two other TIE fighters flanking him, coming down the trench run and taking out all the fighters one by one and really breathing down Luke's neck. And I think at that point we see a Force Ghost Ben Kenobi for the first time, talking to him and telling him to use the Force. Yes, this really brings us on to the full turn of hand from a really callous chap to a hero when he saves Luke and lets him do stuff.
I mean, obviously this starts the chain reaction for the destruction of the Death Star, and the heroes get their medals apart from Chewbacca. I think Luke deserved his medal for wearing that hideous jacket. I've got to be honest, that horrible yellow thing. But no, it kind of just rounded it up. At this point, obviously George Lucas didn't know if this film was going to be a hit or miss, so it was a good way to wrap up the film with the heroes being rewarded. The clever thing that he did, though, was not kill off Darth Vader, which he could have easily have done. Certainly did it with Tarkin.
Yeah, who
underestimated the rebels.
Evacuating a moment of triumph. Yes, I think not.
Exactly, and
should have.
I'm just glad that they saved Vader, because it would have been a real pity if they killed him off. It certainly would have been a Darth Maul moment. But just in summary, this was a film that kicked it all off, and I don't just mean Star Wars. This inspired young directors at the time, the Spielbergs, the James Camerons, the Ridley Scotts, to really seriously look at what they were doing. And I think it was actually Ridley Scott that said, paraphrasing here, but he said something along the lines, prior to Star Wars, and then seeing Star Wars, he realised, what is it I'm doing? I'm not even in the same galaxy, as George Lucas here. I need to, up my game. This also inspired future filmmakers such as, Robert Zemeckis, J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson and Gareth Edwards obviously as well. It really was the film that revolutionised the studio, with companies, ILM, Skywalker Sound, I think Pixar in its very early days as well was a Lucas creation as well. It really did kick it all off, John.
Yeah, I mean, what an impact the man's actually made on Hollywood when you think about it. You list all those companies, how utterly influential those are to filmmaking in this day. I mean, Pixar alone, it's just an absolute hit machine for animated films these days. And yeah, just my final thoughts on it. As I say, it's single greatest film franchise in Western society, probably the world. This kicked off, created one of the most defining films in pop culture history. And I just absolutely love it. I think it's a fantastically directed film. It's got everything going for it: visuals, music, great characters who are all developed and given the moment to breathe. Absolutely love it. One of my favourite films of all time.
So that's our summary of A New Hope, Episode 4. We'll be back tomorrow with Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, but we'd just like to thank you once again for listening to the podcast. We're only 4 days away from the release of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, which we're all looking forward to. When we do get to that point, we will be talking in summary before we see the film, and obviously once we do watch the film, we'll give our spoiler review of that as well. But once again, I'd like to thank you all, and we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you.